When war broke out in 1939, Britain's army was small and professional, until conscription swept millions of ordinary men into uniform. Overnight, shopkeepers, clerks and farmers became soldiers, trading civilian life for the harsh discipline of military training. There was no choice. It was duty, a grim necessity for survival. Gone were the romantic notions of battle. This was about endurance, not glory. Training was relentless. Miles marched with heavy packs, live ammunition overhead, and every ounce of individuality stripped away. Instructors, veterans of the Great War, knew sentimentality was a luxury. Survival depended on discipline and resilience. These men boarded ships, leaving behind families and the comforts of home, bound for deserts, beaches, and jungles. They weren't adventurers. They were ordinary men, thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Their story isn't one of conquest, but of quiet endurance against overwhelming odds. The transformation was abrupt and disorienting, but necessary. They learned to kill, to obey, and to survive. Each man became a cog in a vast machine, facing an uncertain future. The goal wasn't heroism, it was survival. They sailed into history, armed with duty and hope. This is the story of ordinary people asked to do the unimaginable. Combat was chaos. Far from the sanitized newsreels at home, shrapnel was the greatest threat, tearing through flesh and bone without mercy. Medics worked frantically, but medicine could only do so much. Amputation was common. Soldiers returned home with missing limbs, scars, and pain that lingered for years. Disease and exhaustion were constant enemies. Trench foot, dysentery, and malnutrition wore men down. Every day was a battle against the environment as much as the enemy. The physical scars set them apart, a permanent reminder of what they endured. Each wound told a story of survival and loss. The pain might fade, but the memory, etched in their bodies, never did. War left its mark on every survivor. For many, the war ended not in victory but in captivity. After the fall of Singapore, tens of thousands became prisoners of the Japanese, facing starvation, disease, and brutality. The Japanese viewed surrender as dishonor, treating POWs with calculated cruelty. Starvation was constant, meager rations, rampant disease, and forced labor on projects like the Death Railway. Beatings were routine, designed to break spirits and enforce control. Survival meant enduring malnutrition, illness, and violence. Liberation brought little relief. Survivors were emaciated, their health shattered. Many never fully recovered, haunted by the ordeal for life. 1 in 3 did not survive the camps. Their endurance was a triumph of spirit, but at a terrible cost. In Burma's jungles, the Chindits waged a different war, deep behind enemy lines, cut off from support. Led by Ord Wingate, they faced not just the Japanese but the jungle itself, heat, disease and exhaustion. Malaria, dysentery and leeches were constant companions. The terrain was a nightmare. Airdrops often failed, forcing men to forage for food and water. The sick and wounded faced grim choices: keep moving or be left behind. The Chindits' policy for casualties was brutal. Those unable to walk were left with a revolver and a single bullet. Most casualties came from disease and exhaustion, not enemy fire. Survivors were physically and mentally shattered, haunted by their ordeal. The Chindit experience pushed men to the limits of human endurance. Their courage was matched only by their suffering. The Jungle Campaign remains one of the war's most brutal and forgotten chapters. It was a story of resilience in the face of relentless adversity. Not all wounds were visible. Many soldiers returned with deep psychological scars. What we now call PTSD was then dismissed as weakness or shell shock. Men were expected to be stoic, forced to bottle up their trauma. Nightmares, anger, and emotional numbness haunted veterans, isolating them from families and society. The transition to civilian life was overwhelming. The gulf between veterans and civilians seemed unbridgeable. Many suffered in silence, unable to share or seek help. The stiff upper lip became a prison, trapping men with their pain. The invisible wounds of war proved as devastating as any physical injury. Homecoming in 1945 brought celebration, but for many veterans it marked the start of a new struggle. Families had changed, children were strangers, wives more independent, and society eager to move on. Veterans found it impossible to share their experiences. Silence became the norm. The horrors of war were unspoken, creating distance within families. Society expected men to forget and rebuild, leaving little room for grief or trauma. Veterans sought solace in clubs and associations, but the silence persisted at home. Many carried their burdens alone, shaping family life for decades. The war lingered in nightmares, sudden moods, and unspoken memories. The silence was not forgetfulness, but a testament to the weight of memory. The war had ended, but its echoes endured in every home. For many, peace brought a different kind of battle. The war forged a new Britain, reshaping ideas of duty, sacrifice, and trauma. The scale of suffering forced the nation to confront the true cost of conflict. Old notions of glory gave way to a sober understanding of endurance. The experience led to better care for veterans, including the creation of the NHS and advances in mental health. The silent suffering of a generation sparked change, slowly breaking the stigma around psychological wounds. Their ordeal became central to Britain's identity, not triumph, but resilience. Heroism was redefined as the act of enduring, day after day. The legacy of endurance continues to shape how Britain remembers and cares for its own. Their story is a lesson in survival and quiet strength. The memory of the Second World War is woven into Britain's fabric, memorials, ceremonies, and family stories. As that generation fades, it's vital to remember the war as it truly was, not as myth. The real cost was borne in bodies and minds, scars, illnesses, nightmares, and silence. Honoring their ordeal means facing the harsh reality, not sanitizing it. Their suffering shaped how we care for soldiers today, especially those with invisible wounds. The duty of care lasts a lifetime, not just during service. We must keep telling their stories, learning from their endurance. By remembering the true cost, we honor their sacrifice and gain a deeper understanding of war's reality, lest we forget.